So if you're planning your very first Camino and walking a Camino in Spain, you might be wondering, do I need to be able to speak some Spanish? That's what we're going to talk about this week, coming right up. Okay, so the question of walking a Camino in Spain and your Spanish language ability. Do you need to be able to speak Spanish? It kind of depends on the Camino route that you're going to be walking. My very first Camino was the Camino Frances. It's the most popular route. People along that route are used to seeing pilgrims from all over the world. I wish I had learnt a bit of Spanish before I went, to be honest. So regardless, if you can learn a little bit, it's going to make your Camino much more enjoyable. And by a little bit, I mean 20 words will do. Now, if you come from the United States, a lot of people seem to speak Spanish from there. It's almost a second language. But for us down here in Australia, we're terrible at languages. And I know other parts of the world, I'm from the UK originally, we're not great at languages there. So let me give you a few tips on how to get by. So first of all, if you're going to be walking a route like the Camino Frances, you can almost get by, but to my mind, it's always a little bit more polite if you're going to spend time in another country, just learn a little bit of the language. And I mean, like 20 words or something. Hello, goodbye, please, thank you. You know, all of those sort of common words that can add a little bit of politeness to your communication. How do you go about learning some Spanish? I actually took a few different approaches. So I probably, on my first Camino, knew about 10, 20 words, and I got by. On my subsequent Caminos, particularly because my wife Pat was coming with me, she gets a bit nervous and said, well, I think you ought to speak a little bit, you know, what if we get sick or we're in an accident or something like that? I didn't learn a lot more, I have to confess, but I tried a few different ways of learning. There are some great YouTube channels out there with Spanish on them. I'll try and put a couple of links down below. There are some really good apps that you can get for your phone. I think Duolingo is a popular one. You can go to classes. One of the things I found though is I'm a bit time poor and I'm also very impatient. And I didn't want to go through class after class after class learning things that really I didn't need to know for the Camino. You know, I didn't really want to have to do a complete basic Spanish course just to ask how to book a hotel room, you know, for example. So I was quite selective in the phrases that I was trying to learn. And that's probably quite a good tip, you know, if you're not great at languages, start building a bit of a list of the things that you want to be able to say and find out how to say those. What I did though, prior to my second Camino, I actually advertised locally for a Spanish tutor. Now, you might think this is going over the top, but it actually worked out really well. I managed to find this lovely guy from Ponferrada, so he knew all about the Camino. And we would get together for an hour on a Saturday, and we went through some real basic stuff, you know, hello, my name is, and all the rest of it. And then I said to him, look, I really just want to learn the essentials that will get me by on the Camino. And so, you know, we'd spend one lesson talking about food and restaurants and another one about hotels. And it was quite funny because he would go into another room and then he'd say, right, today we're going to learn how to call a hostel or a hotel and see if they've got some accommodation. And he'd disappear off. I said, where are you going? So you're going to call me on the phone. And, you know, it was a really good exercise because when you're face to face with someone and you can read the body language and whether they're comprehending or not, it makes a big difference. So he had me, you know, ringing him in the next room, asking for hotel rooms and things like that. So that's another way. Maybe you have a Spanish-speaking friend. So the point of this is you don't need to learn a lot, particularly if you're walking on one of the most populous routes like the Camino Frances. My next one, hopefully, is going to be the Via de la Plata. And people have told me, Rob, you will need a little bit more Spanish. Again, I think it's coming from the perspective of you can get by, but in those more remote areas, far fewer people are going to understand English or other languages. So, hey, I'm happy to learn a little bit more. So what are some of the things that I learnt? If you speak no Spanish at all, please do, learn words for please and thank you and good day. So I think most of us know those from TV programs. And there's a few things also that will help you pronounce Spanish words when you're looking at them. And you need to understand that some letters are pronounced differently in Spanish. So I've got a couple here. V, for example, is pronounced like a B. So here am I asking for vino all the time. Actually, it's pronounced vino. So that was a revelation. And por favor, please, is por favor, if you're going to pronounce it correctly. Now, don't jump down below and say, Rob, you didn't get that right. I'm not saying my Spanish is great. Another thing that is, I think, fairly unique to the Spanish language is the double L that you see in a word, and that is pronounced like a Y. So, mi llamo, my name, has got a double L in it, so it's pronounced with a Y. The H, I think most of us understand, is silent in Spanish, so it's not hotel, it's hotel. It's not hostel, it's hostal. And the J is pronounced more like an H. So when you see the name J-O-S-E, it's not Jose, it's Jose. So I think, if you can understand some of those slight pronunciation differences, that's going to help you a lot. I mean, I went right through my first Camino mispronouncing a couple of words, and it's amazing that I was ever understood, things like the B's and the V's and so on. So I actually carry a little file on my phone, and there are 7 pages of Spanish terms on here, which I learned with my wonderful Spanish teacher. I'm not suggesting you need to learn all of this, but I'm just going to glance through it and give you an idea of some of the things that are useful to learn. There's some medical terms here, for arm. I never needed that. You can use sign language. Sign language is great, You have to go and see the doctor and you go, ow, they know your hand hurts. Telling the time, yeah, that was quite useful. The days of the week, lunes, martes, miércoles, learn those. That's quite handy. Directions are quite handy as well. So, straight on, todo recto, and turning right and left and so on. Saying hello, of course, is pretty important. So buenos dias, I think we all know, which is basically good day. In the afternoons, generally between 12 and 9 p.m, then people would say buenas tardes, which is good evening. And then after 9, when it's night time, buenas noches. Sorry, I'm not really wanting to turn this into a Spanish lesson. Not just because I'm incompetent with Spanish, but it's really just to give you an idea of some of the things to look at. If I'm learning a language for which I have no knowledge whatsoever, and I've tried to learn a few for traveling, I don't worry about grammar and stuff like that, because people will understand you. If you're just trying to grasp a few words. One phrase, when we come to accommodation. So, I would generally book one night ahead with my accommodation. And I've explained on other videos, it's because I walk so slowly. I arrive after everybody else. So I made sure I learnt terms like, I have a booking, my name is, so me llamo Roberto, tengo una reserva. So my name's Robert, I've got a reservation. And also, I managed to learn how to call and say, do you have a vacancy? So those sorts of things are handy. Terms like, I'm sorry, lo siento, is very good to know. Asking for various things in hotels. I had to learn that for Pat. Have an extra towel. Yeah, traveling with a princess is fun. Some medical type terms are quite handy. So pharmacia for the pharmacy. What else have we got? That's telling the time. There's a whole bunch of stuff ordering food. I never found a problem really ordering food, because particularly in areas where they're used to lots of pilgrims, the menus very often will be not just in Spanish anyway, but also lots of the places will have menus with photos on them. So, you can say, I'll have this and this and this. But you start to pick up, the general sort of things, pollo is chicken and that sort of thing. Although I did get into trouble a few times with menus. It's got me in trouble a few times in different countries, actually, because you spot a word and you think, oh, that's fish, and you order it and you find it's not quite what you expected. Here's a word to look out for. I went through my very first Camino trying to order bacon and eggs for breakfast and getting it horribly wrong. I think I was ordering Thursdays, not eggs. So eggs, huevos. You would never guess it from looking at the word. H-E-R-V-O-S, huevos. So that's why it really helps to get a Spanish speaker just to, even if it's only for a couple of hours, to help you with the pronunciation for some of these words. Look, I think that's probably the basics. It's please, thank you, hello. Do you have a bed available? That kind of thing. Really don't sweat it. But if you can just learn a few words, I think it's polite to do it, and it's just going to make life a little bit easier as well. It's a little bit more comfortable. It'll give you a little bit of confidence when you're ordering things. In terms of getting away with language, I was just looking where my mobile phone is. On my very first Camino, I stayed in a few places where the host didn't speak any English, and let me just say, why would I expect that? I don't think you should travel to any non-English speaking country and expect people to speak English. So it's up to you to get by. But these were in quite small villages in rural areas, and the host didn't speak a word of English. And I used an app on my phone. And I think, I spoke into it and then pressed the Spanish, and my host listened to it and kind of went, oh, because I didn't understand what she was trying to tell me. And then she spoke into it and it was, dinner's at 7. Ah, perfecto, gracias. So, there's ways that you can get around it. So all of those sort of apps and things on your phone are pretty handy too. So there you go. Don't sweat if your Spanish ability is rather like mine was, practically zero. A few little words, polite words, will help you as you're going along. And if you can learn a few phrases and things like that, that's going to be good too. So thank you for watching again this week. How have you gone with learning language or getting by with languages on the Caminos? I've just been talking about the Spanish Caminos, but how did you go on the Camino Portuguese or some of the French Caminos? Love to hear down below. Any funny incidents that you've had with languages? That's always good. Oh, one of my favorite Spanish terms I took me a while to work out what this is, but I was getting some help in some accommodation one day, and the lady behind the desk kept saying SOS, SOS. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? I mean, I know SOS means save our souls in English, but what does it mean in Spanish? It must, what do the letters stand for? SOS. And then eventually the penny dropped. S or S. That's it. So, yeah, some really great phrases or terms in Spanish when you get to understand them. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.